I thought I'd finally moved on. 3 years had passed since I ended things with Mark, and life was good. A new job, a new apartment, a fresh start. That is until the day I found the rose on my doorstep. It was a single red rose, just like the ones Mark used to leave for me when we first started dating. At first, I brushed it off as a kind gesture from a neighbor or perhaps a secret admirer. But when it happened again the next day and the day after that, unease began to creep in. One evening while walking home, I spotted a familiar figure across the street, tall with that distinctive stride. Could it be Mark? My heart skipped a beat. I shook my head, telling myself it was just a trick of the light. Then the note started appearing. It slipped under my door, tucked into my mailbox, and even left on my car windshield. Each one contained phrases only Mark would know. Memories from our past I'd rather forget. Remember our sunset walks by the lake? One read. Another said, "You looked beautiful in blue, just like on our first date." My hands trembled as I held the crumpled papers. I decided to confront him, but his old number was disconnected, and mutual friends hadn't heard from him in years. Late one night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Why are you ignoring me?" "Who is this?" I replied, though I already knew. "You know who." That was enough. I called the police and filed a report, but without a direct threat, there wasn't much they could do. They advised me to stay vigilant. The following week, I found my favorite coffee waiting on my desk at work, a drink only Mark knew I loved. My social media accounts showed login attempts from unfamiliar devices. One morning I woke to find "We belong together" scrawled on my apartment door. Fear turned into terror. I stayed with a friend, but even there, I didn't feel safe. One evening, as we discussed the situation, my phone rang. It was Mark's old number. Gathering courage, I answered. "What do you want, Mark?" A chilling whisper replied, "You'll see." That night, my friend's house was broken into. Nothing was taken, but a photo of Mark and me was left shattered on the kitchen table. This was no longer just unsettling, it was dangerous. I decided to leave town for a while. As I boarded the train, a sense of relief washed over me. Settling into my seat, I glanced out the window. There, on the platform, stood Mark, staring straight at me with a cold smile. My blood ran cold. The train doors closed and we began to move. I thought I'd escaped, but when I turned back, a note lay on the seat beside me. "You can't run from us." Us? Panic surged through me. Just then, someone sat down next to me. I looked up to see a woman with familiar eyes. Mark's sister. "Hello," she said softly, her gaze piercing. "We need to talk." As the train hurtled into the darkness, I realized this nightmare was far from over. My car sputtered and rolled to a stop under the inky sky, miles away from the nearest town. The dashboard lights flickered before fading completely. Great, just what I needed. A breakdown on a deserted road with no cell service. I stepped out into the crisp night air, the silence almost deafening. Stars twinkled overhead but offered little comfort. As I contemplated my next move, headlights appeared in the distance, growing brighter as they approached. I waved hesitantly, and the vehicle, a rusty pickup truck, pulled over. "Need some help?" called out a gruff voice. A middle-aged man with a worn baseball cap and a scruffy beard stepped out. Relieved, I nodded. "Yeah, my car just died. I think it's the battery." He smiled warmly. "Lucky for you, I'm a mechanic. Let's take a look." He tinkered under the hood, humming an unfamiliar tune. "Name's Tom," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Thanks, Tom. I'm Alex." "Well, Alex, looks like your alternator's shot. I can give you a lift to the nearest town. Got a spare room if you need a place to stay for the night." Something about spending the night at a stranger's house made me uneasy. "I appreciate the offer, but maybe you could drop me at a motel." He chuckled. "Ain't no motels open this late round here. Come on, it's no trouble." I hesitated, but reminded myself that beggars can't be choosers. All right, thank you. We drove down winding roads, the trees looming like silent sentinels. So, what brings you out here? He asked. Just passing through on a road trip, I replied. He nodded slowly. Not many folks come this way. After what felt like an eternity, we pulled up to a secluded cabin. Home sweet home, he announced. Inside, the place was cluttered but cozy. Make yourself comfortable, he said. I'll fix us some tea. I sat on a threadbare couch, glancing around. Framed photos lined the walls, but the faces were scratched out. Unease gnawed at me. Here you go. Tom handed me a steaming mug. Thanks. I took a sip and noticed a door secured with heavy bolts. What's behind that door? I asked casually. His friendly demeanor shifted. Just storage. Nothing interesting. An awkward silence settled. I suddenly felt dizzy. The room began to blur. I think I need some fresh air, I stammered, standing up unsteadily. Tom blocked my path. You should rest. Looks like the day's caught up with you. Panic surged as I realized something was very wrong. I tried to push past him, but my limbs felt like lead. What did you do? I mumbled before collapsing. I awoke to darkness, hands bound, the muffled sound of dripping water echoing around me. The air was damp and cold. Struggling to focus, I saw shadows of chains and sharp tools hanging from the ceiling. Footsteps approached. Tom's silhouette appeared, now menacing. You're awake, he said softly. I was hoping we'd have more time to get to know each other. Please let me go, I begged. He sighed. They always say that, but you're special, Alex. You were meant to find me. Desperation fueled my adrenaline. As he turned to pick up a tool, I noticed a jagged piece of metal on the ground. Summoning all my strength, I grabbed it and sawed at the ropes. He turned back, eyes widening. Hey, stop that! Just as the rope gave way, I lunged, slicing his arm. He screamed in pain and I bolted past him, navigating the labyrinth of the basement. I found a staircase and stumbled upward, bursting into the night. The forest loomed ahead, and I ran, branches tearing at my skin. Behind me, Tom's enraged shouts grew fainter. After what felt like hours, I reached a road where a truck driver eventually stopped and helped me contact the police. They searched the area but found no trace of Tom or the cabin. To this day, authorities doubt my story, but I know what happened. Somewhere out there, Tom is still offering help to stranded travelers on deserted roads, and I pray they won't accept it. I arrived in Prague, eager to explore its winding cobblestone streets and historic architecture. With my camera around my neck, I aimed to capture the city's famed charm. While photographing the astronomical clock in Old Town Square, a sudden flash caught my eye. I turned to see a man in a dark coat lowering his camera, staring at me. Offering a polite smile, I continued my walk. At Charles Bridge, during a golden sunset, I was engrossed in photographing the statues when the same flash appeared. The man was there again, his camera aimed directly at me. Unease settled in, perhaps he was just photographing the crowd. The next morning, visiting Prague Castle, I admired St. Vitus Cathedral when I felt a chill. Spinning around, I saw the man quickly hide his camera. This was no coincidence. Determined to lose him, I entered a cafe and observed from a corner seat. Minutes later, he passed by, scanning the area. My heart raced. Who was he, and why was he following me? Gathering courage, I confronted him. "Excuse me," I called out. He turned, his sharp features expressionless. "Yes?" "Are you taking photos of me?" I asked, steadying my voice. He shrugged slightly. "You are photogenic. The city suits you." "That's unsettling. Please stop." He nodded slowly. "As you wish." Feeling relieved, I spent the afternoon exploring without incident. That evening I joined a guided ghost tour, hoping the group would deter him. As we navigated dim alleys, I felt a familiar presence. He was at the back, camera partly hidden. Fear gripped me. I approached the guide. "That man isn't part of the group. He's been following me," The guide looked back. Nothing was there. These old streets play tricks on the mind, he reassured me. Frustrated, I returned to my hotel. The dark, labyrinthine streets felt more confining. Footsteps echoed behind me. I quickened my pace and ducked into a narrow passage. "Wait," a voice called. I ran, heart pounding, and turned a corner, thinking I hit a wall. Strong hands grabbed my arms. "Let me go!" I screamed. "It's me," the man said softly, holding my wallet. "You dropped this." I snatched it back. "Why are you following me?" He sighed. "I'm a photographer for a travel magazine, capturing candid shots for an article." "Why not ask permission?" "Authenticity," he replied. "I was intrusive. I apologize." Relief mixed with distrust. "Please leave me alone." He nodded and vanished into the shadows. Back at my hotel, I tried to relax, thinking I had overreacted. Then, a local news segment caught my attention. "Police are seeking a man impersonating a photographer," the reporter said, showing a composite sketch. It was him. My blood ran cold. A knock on my door made me jump. "Housekeeping," a voice called. At this hour? I peered through the peephole. Empty hallway. The knock persisted. I grabbed my phone to call the front desk, but there was no signal. The lights flickered and went out. Heart racing, I backed away as the door clicked open. He stood silhouetted against the dim light. "Stay away!" I shouted. He stepped inside calmly. "I tried to be polite, but you have something I need." Realizing it wasn't about photos, I hurled a lamp and fled down the corridor. His footsteps followed steadily. Bursting into the lobby, I shouted for help. The receptionist looked around. "What man?" He was gone. Police arrived but found no evidence, advising me to stay elsewhere. Exhausted and terrified, I booked a room at another hotel under a false name. As I settled into bed, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A photo of me in my new room, taken from outside the window. A text followed. "You can't hide from me." I glanced at the window. The latch was broken. The enchanting city had become a maze I couldn't escape. Somewhere out there he was watching, waiting for the next perfect shot.